You're watching QTV broadcasting from the Gambia, and this is the news with me, Answana Eswenyase. First, the main local, international and sports news headlines. COVID-19 and other factors have led to Gambia's 56th independence anniversary being used as an opportunity for reflection. The deputy head of the civil service and other senior civil servants have validated a new civil service performance management policy. Gambia's Food Safety and Quality Authority announces new food safety standards to be observed before businesses will be allowed to operate. 100 orphans have benefited from a cash donation from a charitable organization. And in sports, female and male football referees from the first and second divisions are taking part in a training course that hopes to raise refereeing standards. Well, for more on this, another story is coming up this station. And now, the local news in detail. The Gambia today, Thursday, celebrated 56 years of nationhood since it was granted independence by the British. Alusise tells us more.
It was on 18 February 1965 that the Union Jack was lowered for the last time and the Gambian flag hoisted, marking the country's independence from British rule. The so-called junta independence wasn't an easy one, but the determination and courage of our founding fathers, such as Edward Francis Small and Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara, among others, finally saw the British grant the country's request. After 56 years of nationhood, many are questioning whether the country is truly independent and whether this day should be given over to celebration or reflection. For some, celebration is because the country is still on the journey which started in 1965. For others, a country cannot be independent if it continues to be reliant on foreign aid and loans with a high cost of living, poor health and education systems, and a high unemployment rate.
In my opinion, the Gambia has nothing to celebrate as far as independence is concerned, because going by my definition of what independence is, we are not totally free from outside control or even outside support.
It also gives us a sense of belonging as Gambians, and it also shows us our rights as citizens.
For me, it marks a very important moment, and it's a defining moment for this country, looking at the struggles and the sacrifices made by our founding fathers.
Gaining independence means now we get ownership of ourselves, we can decide for ourselves, we can decide our destiny, at least.
Well, I will say yes, we have to celebrate it because it's a big day. It's a day that all citizens should celebrate.
But still, what I feel has been our biggest challenge is that we still continue to replicate the very state that was left by the colonialists. And what do I mean by that? Still today, this country is divided between rural and urban. Still today, people that are in the urban centers are likely to do better in life because they have more opportunities compared to those in rural.
It's a day to commemorate and also to remember who we are. Because in a society, if you cannot understand or know much about your history, at the end of the day, you will get lost.
Unlike the questioning attitude of today, many remember the day as one that students always look forward to.
As school children, of course, at that young age, we used to be very thrilled with our new uniforms, and our very smart hairdos, not these long hairs. We used to do what we call later. Very decent with our new shoes and socks.
It's things change actually. It used to be more jubilant than what we have right now. It used to be a big occasion. Before we had Empire Day, when we used to leave Serekunda, go to Bakau. Then there are only 3 schools in KMC: Serekunda, St. Teresa's, and Bakau School. So every year we gather at that place to make for sports to mark the annual Empire's Day. But now after that, it used to be the same thing as well, because after the independence celebration, we have sports for the primary schools. And it was very festive, definitely, very festive.
As the Gambia observes today, there is much to be proud of, but there is much more to achieve in order to better the lives of the ordinary people, many of whom live in abject poverty. This, according to many, will require nothing but having an absolute honest and committed political class that prioritizes the welfare of the people rather than one obsessed only with occupying the seat of power. Until that happens, the annual debate will continue to be whether to celebrate, commemorate, or use Independence Day for sober reflection. Reporting for QTV News, I am Alusise.
Now, given its importance, we are repeating this public service announcement. In the light of the worrisome trajectory of a new wave of the COVID-19 pandemic in the Gambia, the government will suspend the issuing of new police permits for all parties, music festivals, political events and all forms of social gatherings effective 8 March 2021. The government will in due course outline a more detailed statement governing the upcoming restrictions and their regulations. Well, the Ministry of Health urges the public to adhere to the basic COVID-19 protocols of proper wearing of face mask, social distancing, regular hand washing and limited gatherings. The Deputy Secretary General and Head of the Civil Service on Wednesday urged civil servants to remain steadfast and professional in the discharge of their functions. Salimatu A.F. Toure was speaking at the Validation Forum on the new draft Civil Service Performance Management System policy. More in this report. Spearheaded by the Personnel Management Office, this new draft policy document, once enacted, is expected to strengthen government civil service reform drive. The civil service plays an extremely important role in the administration, policy formulation and implementation of government policy. Addressing participants drawn from various government ministries, among them permanent secretaries, the Deputy Permanent Secretary and Head of the Civil Service, Salimatu Toure, urged participants to thoroughly scrutinize the document before validating it, as it will serve as the main guide for government in reforming the civil service.
The diagnostic report of the Civil Service Reform Program has revealed that over time, there has been limited adherence to meritocratic principles in recruitment, training, and promotion of civil servants. This means schemes of service are not systematically administered, and the practice of regular staff appraisals as basis for staff promotion has fallen to disuse.
Lamin Samate, chairperson of the Public Service Commission, says civil service performance is critical to national development, hence the need to reform the civil service.
This is a very important landmark in the civil service reform, to make the civil service perform effectively, efficiently, and for the economy also to perform effectively and efficiently. There has to be a performance management system.
Lamin Jawara, the Permanent Secretary at the Personnel Management Office, says the review and validation of this draft important policy document will enhance delivery of public services and effective implementation of public policies and programs that will positively impact the welfare of all citizens.
A sound performance management system will ensure that public servants are held accountable for what they are assigned to do. In this way, the discipline and performance of public servants will improve.
Meanwhile, senior government officials have expressed hope that this new draft policy will reinforce a robust performance management system as well as improve accountability, transparency and equity within the civil service. Now, from next month, food businesses will face new statutory regulations on licensing and registrations from Gambia's Food Safety and Quality Authority. The regulations will require certain food safety standards to be observed before businesses will be allowed to operate. Well, as Mamudu Lamin Choi reports, the FSQA officers are sensitizing affected businesses on the new regulations.
Sensitization before implementation. Officers of the Food Safety and Quality Authority are out to familiarize food business operators with new regulations. This comes ahead of plans to introduce them next month, and it will require the licensing and registration of food businesses after they are examined and certified by FSQA to meet specified food safety and quality standards. Registration of all food businesses is a statutory mandate of the Food Safety Quality Authority, and it is now going further with new regulations for enforcement.
Since inception, we've been registering, but we were not licensing them, and it was free of charge. We were not charging anything for 7 years. This was to just get a database of all the food and feed establishments in the country. So now it is time to now start implementation. So we want to start it in 2021, backed by the regulation that was gazetted, to now implement registration and licensing. But it will go for a prescribed fee as well. And all the fees and forms and requirements are all provided for in the regulation. and now we would be charging businesses. So reason being that we don't even want to just start implementation at once. We've given the food business establishments a grace period, and then we've also been sensitizing them.
The enforcement of the regulations will start with major food establishments, which are organized into categories that include food and feed processing factories, import and export of food products, fish processing facilities, supermarkets, mini-markets, restaurants, bakeries, street food vendors, corner shops, and so on.
And the other regulation is the food fortification regulation, which also seeks to regulate 3 food vehicles, which is edible fats and oil, salt, and also edible fats and oil, salt, and wheat flour. These regulations seek to ensure that these 3 food vehicles are fortified with micronutrients. So anybody importing these 3 food vehicles, those products should be fortified with prescribed micronutrients, and there's also a regulation for that, which is the Food Fortification Regulation 2020.
Bread is a food product that most Gambians consume daily, but how it is processed demands more regulations to meet hygiene standards for the health of consumers. This is evident on this sensitization tour with food safety officers, during which signs of low food safety standards have emerged in terms of personal and environmental hygiene. I will urge ourselves to ensure cleanliness in our bakeries. We want to ensure that people who consume tapalapa are safe, because the bread we make is for everyone. The Food Safety and Quality Authority says it is introducing these regulatory measures as part of its reform strategies to effectively exercise their mandate. But achieving this goal will no doubt depend on how much the authority boosts its capacity and decentralizes operations across the country. This is another task the authority is planning to take on.
We are trying to decentralize by establishing offices in the region. So that was also part of the commitments and reforms of the new management. So currently we secured land allocations within the regions, and we've managed to set up an office that will be soon functional, that is in Mansakonko, and it is located at the governor's office in Mansakonko. So these are steps that have been taken by the new management and the new DG in terms of commitment to reform the authority, with particular interest in decentralization.
A strong food safety and quality control system is needed more in a country where many still struggle to put food on the table. It is hoped that the Food Safety and Quality Authority will help Gambians to live up to the saying of Pat Buchanan, who cautioned us that the food that enters the mind must be washed as closely as the food that enters the body. Mahmoud Lamin Chai, QTV News.
And from that report, we will take a short commercial break, but still to come is local and sports news. Well, thanks for staying with us. If you're just joining us, this is QTV News. Now, the Al-Nama Society, in partnership with the US-based African Relief and Community Development, a charitable organization, on Wednesday distributed cash to 100 orphans in the Gambia as financial assistance. Omar Pijalo attended the event and he now reports.
Orphans and single-parent children are among the poorest and most marginalized in our society. These children continue to battle with inadequate access to basic needs such as food, clothing, education, and healthcare services. Each of the 100 beneficiary orphans went home with $7,000 for their food, clothing, education, and healthcare. The president of the Supreme Islamic Council, Sir Alhaji Isa Dabo, and the president of Amana, Sir Omar Kureis, both commended the Al-Nama Society for the gesture, saying, supporting orphans is the true teaching of Islam and the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, while reminding the single parents or caregivers of the beneficiary children to use the money for the welfare of the children. The chairperson of the Al-Nama Society, Sheikh Abdullah Lutfi, said their foundation started operating in the Gambia 4 years ago, but this is the first intervention following their partnership with a charitable organization based in America, who provided the funding for this assistance. He adds that their intervention areas include supporting orphans, digging water wells, health and education. On behalf of the beneficiary parents, Aja Zainab Diva said supporting orphans is one of the best deeds, as Allah has mentioned orphans 23 times in 22 verses of the Holy Quran. Adding, the Prophet, peace be upon him, also said he will live in the same place in heaven with the people who support orphans.
This gesture has come at a very, very important time with this development, thinking about us, the parents of orphans in the Gambia, and trying to lift some of our hardships. We are very, very much appreciative of your efforts. I also want to remind myself and my fellow parents that the money of orphans could be very dangerous and could be very good. Because if we consume the money of orphans unlawfully, we are consuming fire. So my fellow parents and recipients, please let us be very careful and know how to spend the money.
Representing the Minister of Gender, Children and Social Welfare, Amina Fati, thanked the Al-Nama Society for partnering with her ministry and assured them that the ministry's doors are always open for partnership.
This humanitarian effort is in line with ministry's child protection intervention in responding to the needs of orphans and vulnerable children in the Gambia. However, I therefore applaud the efforts of Al-Naman Supreme Islamic Council for complementing the efforts of government in reaching out to orphans and vulnerable children. Thank you for coming to share with our people, especially helping the cause for orphans and vulnerable children.
The Gambia is one of Africa's smallest and poorest nations, ranked 168 out of 187 countries, according to the latest ranking of the United Nations Development Programs. Due to the high poverty rates in the country, many people, especially orphans and single-parent children, are highly vulnerable to financial crises. The consequences of extreme poverty include widespread food insecurity, shortage of cash, which will in turn result to a lack of access to education and healthcare. Reporting for QTV News, I am Omar P. Jallo.
Well, we will take our second commercial break, but when we return, we take a look at some sports news. Over now to sports. 30 football coaches drawn from first and second division male and female leagues are currently undergoing an intensive sea-lancing coaching course at the FIFA Goal Project in Yundum, supervised by Gambian instructors. Babukar C reports.
The last time a sea-lancing coaching course was conducted in the country was in 2015, after which FIFA and CAF stopped the programs due to some irregularities. The current training is expected to finish in March. At the event, the technical director of the Gambia Football Federation, Sang Dong, who is one of the instructors, explained why it took almost 6 years for the course to be held.
There were a lot of lapses in the system. Because of that, the system was blocked temporarily, and or say it was freezed until this last year, 2020, when they studied everything and came up with a concept called the convention, which is, as of now, we'll be designing our own programs and sending it to CAF for approval and get our courses done. Presently, the only course available is the C license. The B and the A and the Pro are still on hold, and they still continue with their research. And there are a lot of things that change, like the number of hours. Before you had less hours, 80 hours. Now we've got 120 hours. Even our local D license now, that used to be something like 15, 18 hours is now something like 60 hours. So the B license is about 160, 180. The A is over 200 hours. So it's very demanding, and all the instructors must come locally, which is they're not sending instructor to any country now.
The other Gambian instructors are Alaji Silla and Lamin Sambu. Previously, instructors were sent by CAF and FIFA to conduct the courses. The technical director tells us why it is a Gambian affair this time.
CAF and FIFA, all of them have reviewed the methods they were using, and they found out, I think, it's better to use the locals. So now it's the responsibility of CAF and FIFA to train instructors. Presently, we've got 3 instructors, which is myself, Alaji Silla, and LS Sambu. We did the force training in Senegal in 2019, and the 2020, because of the COVID, we couldn't do the second leg. But we're doing an online course, which is we've almost finished the second, and we'll be going to the final phase. And by now, we should have sent other 2 or 3. So as of now, we have to produce our own. But we are also being certified by CAF and FIFA. What can happen is they are informed that we're running a course presently. They can send in anybody today to just pay a surprise visit and see what are we doing and ask us questions. And if they're not satisfied, they can just annul or cancel the whole course.
Sunanjai is one of the 2 female participants attending the course. She told me what motivated her to take up a job mainly dominated by her male counterparts.
It meant a lot to me simply because it was something that I was yearning for. It's something that coaching is something that I love doing, and I want to see myself prosper. Luckily for us, the men that we joined the train with are so understanding, and like we're doing the same thing. And since we decided to become a coach, we know that we will face some challenges, and this game is the same rules and regulation applies to both boys, both female and men. Though the training is very intensive, but yes, we learn a lot of good new things, but it's okay.
The coaching course involves many aspects of learning. Among them are theory, practical, one-on-one, and observations, among others. Babu Karsi, QTV News.
Well, I'm afraid that's all about it, but before we take a leave of you, let's take a quick look at our main headlines. COVID-19 and other factors have led to Gambia's 56th independence anniversary being used as an opportunity for reflection. The head of the civil service and other senior civil servants have validated a new civil service performance management policy. Gambia's Food Safety and Quality Authority announces new food safety standards to be observed before businesses will be allowed to operate. 100 orphans have benefited from a cash donation from a charitable organization. And in sports, female and male football referees from the first and second divisions are taking part in a training course that hopes to raise refereeing standards. Well, that's all we have for you in this edition of news. But before we take a leave of you, happy independence to all of you out there. Do join us at 10 p.m. for another bulletin. Bye for now.